What's up, guys? Welcome back to The Right Side, and welcome to another episode of The Report. This week has obviously been very, very busy in terms of current events. Trump's been inaugurated as the new president, number 47, and the first thing I want to say regarding the inauguration is his speech, which was perfect. I thought his speech was pristine. Typically, a lot of Trump supporters, especially myself, get really nervous when Trump speaks because we know the potential that he has being a really good speaker, being a powerful speaker. When he had his speech at the RNC, I really wish that he would have stopped after 30, even 45 minutes. The first half or third of that speech was perfect at the RNC. It was surrounded around unity and power and being able to, overcome all that kind of stuff. But then, as Trump often does, he doesn't really know when to stop. He doesn't know when to limit or moderate himself, temper himself. And so he often goes into the weeds and all that kind of stuff. But his speech at the inauguration was perfect. It was a perfect tone. He didn't pull any punches regarding the Biden administration or the failures of the Biden administration. He touched on so many American values and American ideals and American promises that thought that it's a speech that is going to it's definitely set the tone for his administration, for his second term. But I think it'll be a speech that we look at and focus and study for decades and generations. I think it was that good. He spoke on manifest destiny, the American spirit of expanding and growing and prospering. He shut down the ridiculous woke left principles and craziness. He said that there's two genders, there was male and female. He completely rid off DEI, being that it was MLK, Martin Luther King Day. He really hit home about the judging on the content of character, not the color of their skin. Direct shot right to DEI. I really liked that, actually, really did. And then he kind of threw Elon a bone, saying that he wanted to have a man on Mars and kind of continuing JFK's legacy of putting a man on the moon. All just overall, it was a powerful speech that I think perfectly encapsulated what he wanted his second term to be about. He wanted to be about American greatness, American prosperity, being America first, making America great again. And then through that, reinvigorating and reviving those ideals and those principles and those traits, the American spirit, things like that really helped this country grow into what it is today. And what separates us from everyone else in the world, venerating the Constitution and what it means and the tones and the messages and the themes that we can get from it. I think that his energy dominance rhetoric is really good. I think Trump is really going to bring a new level of nationalism in his second administration. I think he's going to bring a new level of American patriotism back in his second administration. I think everything about the day was perfect. Of course, it was inside for reasons that are highly argued upon, and people have different ideas of why that is. It doesn't help that he doesn't trust the Secret Service or the FBI as far as he could throw them, but it was also cold that day, and so I guess that they just left it at that in terms of why they were inside. But that was just on Monday. Everything else after that, he was probably the busiest man on the planet. He signed so many executive orders on day 1 and day 2 and day 3 that it would make your head spin. I know that I was refreshing the New York Times update page as much as I could, trying to keep up with all of the updates. One of the first things that Trump did with his executive orders was pardon all the January 6th people who've been locked up for years at this point. He didn't pardon them all. He gave some pardons, some commutations. Enrique Tarrio was one of many that got a pardon. But probably the bigger pardon in terms of policy promises, campaign promises, that is, the Ross Ulbricht pardoning. Of course, the Silk Road, he was given 2 life sentences for creating a website. And to be fair, I don't like the Silk Road. I don't like what it kind of stood for. I don't like that kind of an open market where you can buy anything. I know that the Silk Road is where you could buy drugs and other things that are illegal in the above ground market. But it's no different than trying to convict AT&T for a conversation that two terrorists might have on their cell service. He created a website, and it was encrypted, and it was people would use it with Bitcoin, and it was a place where people could exchange goods freely under in either the dark web or the deep web, whichever one it was. But all he did was he created a website. He didn't sell anything himself, to my knowledge. He didn't buy anything, to my knowledge. He just simply created a website where other people can conduct their own personal transactions and business. And he was given 2 life sentences for that. A little overkill if you ask me. But we'll see who else he pardons later on. He had a flurry of executive orders on DEI, completely just dismantling affirmative action in terms of hiring for federal contractors, getting rid of all the DEI offices in the FBI, probably CIA as well. Just all the federal offices, just trying to gut the DEI as much as he can. And I think he's done it very, very well. There's a further pushing of his campaign promise of restoring a merit-based economy, a merit-based government, merit-based country, where we don't, as he said in his speech, we want to be a colorblind society, a colorblind country, colorblind economy, colorblind government. And getting rid of DEI is the first step to that. I think he signed an executive order where the United States was going to recognize only male and female as the only 2 genders, which is great. Just putting the nail in the coffin of this whole DEI ridiculous shit. That's completely unnecessary and completely out in left field. It's infecting everything in terms of American life, public government, and universities, school system, everything. It's touched. But I want to say probably the biggest executive orders that Trump signed were, of course, on immigration. And he went at this with a chainsaw, axes, you name it. That's what he hit it with. He signed executive order after executive order targeting different types of immigration in terms of refugee, asylum. He closed the border again, and he tasked the military with finishing up the border wall. And of course, he had the executive order overturning or getting rid of birthright citizenship, which was immediately sued, and so that will go to the Supreme Court, which I think it'll be overturned. I don't think that the Supreme Court will sustain birthright citizenship, even if you're a textualist or if you're an originalist. I think even if you're a textualist or an originalist, if you look at the people who wrote the 14th Amendment and what they intended it for it to be and things like that, it really makes sense as to why it would be overturned. It said very explicitly in one of the writings of the founders of the amendment, the 14th Amendment, that it was in no way meant to protect the children of foreigners or even diplomats who come over here and have children. It's not meant to protect those people and give those people citizenship. So outside of that, regarding whole immigration, it seems like he's going to be very restrictionist and very selective in terms of immigration. And if you've watched any of my videos on immigration, you would know that I absolutely love this. We have an American culture, we have an American country that has its own problems, and we are not in the position to start accepting we are a country that should be the best of the best and not the best of the rest. We are in a position where we want to select people who are going to up the average in terms of American greatness, and flooding the country with millions upon millions upon millions upon millions of migrants, illegal or legal, is nothing short of disastrous for the American economy and for the American culture as a whole, American society. So cracking down immigration like this, I really, really like. I think it's going to have a really good effect. We've already seen the numbers in terms of encounters at the border just plummet dramatically. But on the whole immigration point, It is very important that we conservatives, because the media has already kind of uploaded and shared really heart-wrenching videos, photos of crying migrant mothers and families being having their heart broken after shortly after he was inaugurated. They shut down the app and they canceled all the appointments going forward. The media is doing this on purpose. We all know they are. They are going to try and emotionally manipulate the hell out of the American populace. They did it the first administration, where they said that Trump had the kids in cages, when it was Obama who started that practice in the first place, and Trump tried to end it. But the media is going to try and twist this into something that it is, they're going to try and Nazify this whole thing. They're going to try and make this as fascist, as Hitler-esque as they can. So it's very important for us to, right now, as we currently are, we need to, stiffen our spines. We need to prepare ourselves. We need to, settle our stomachs, because if you think that it's bad now, we know how bad the media can get. And if the media feels like they have no other choice, they will go even further. So we have to be ready for the media manipulation in terms of the effects of this policy in the border, immigration, things like that. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy. The media is going to twist and turn and paint this in every single way to make it as bad and atrocious and heartless as possible. It's very important that we don't let that distract us from the fact that the media and Democrats and the left are going to take these stories as cannon fodder, as ammunition for open borders. Every single time you see a heart-wrenching photo or a video or a story about a migrant, this or that, you need to remember how we got here. You need to remember that these are the same policies that we overturned. The policies that we overturned are the policies that allowed sex trafficking, drug trafficking, weapons trafficking, all across the border, fentanyl, gangs, rape, all of it. Those are the policies that the left, the media, are going to try and advocate for silently, implicitly, when they try and move these stories around the media. We can't let that happen. We need to be ready for the emotional manipulation. We can't let them make us think twice. Because if we think twice, then we're already on the path to going back to where we once were. And I just hope that we don't forget where we once were. All great, battles and where politically you lose ground and you lose often comes at the price or at the reason of you forget how you got here. You forget what made you fight so hard. You forget what it used to be like that pushed you to where you are now. We should not forget how bad and how tragic and how fatal and how disgusting the Biden administration border was. These executive orders and these laws I'm putting in place are going to make that better. And it already is. It already is. The media is going to try and just twist the knife into all of our hearts, trying to make us second guess and make us backpedal and all that kind of stuff. But we have to remember that we cannot let that happen. Cannot forget how we got here. If we do that, then we go back to the open borders policies of Joe Biden. And we cannot let that happen. So I don't doubt that there are going to be many sad stories, heartbreaking stories that are going to come out about honest people wanting to come to this country under, good faith circumstances and honest situations. But we can't let the media manipulate us into backing down and reversing track. They are trying, as the left has done for decades and generations, to use not logic but emotional appeal to move their policies. The sooner we prepare ourselves for that, the sooner we become ready to defend and to stand up for the policies that are going to rebuild the stability and the security of this country, the easier it's going to be to fix everything. The next couple executive orders that he signed had forced federal employees to work in person and not remote. I generally agree with that. I like that executive order. A lot of people are going to have a lot of issues in terms of people working remote for, austerity reasons, that, they can't work in person for whatever reason. I hope those situations are given the exemptions that that the executive order kind of allows for. But the general rule, if you're working for the federal government, you should have an obligation to work in person. You're working for the United States. You're not working for a corporation. You're working for the people. Being able to work for the United States government, for the federal government, is a privilege, not a right. The federal government isn't a jobs mill. The federal government is not a place where you go because you need a job. The federal government is where you go when you have a specific skill or an ability to help the country move forward. Having jobs that are kind of like BS jobs, that are just filler jobs, are not that's how communist regimes achieve what they call like zero unemployment. Just give people spoons and start digging ditches, and that's how the government provides full employment. That's not what the job of government is. I don't want the job of government to be that. A government that big in which it just employs people for the sake of employing people is ridiculous, and is something that I'm glad that Trump is really starting to crack down on. Deportations have already been underway. ICE is absolutely killing it right now. The deportations are occurring across major cities across the country, and is making short order of yet another campaign promise from Trump, making sure that Tom Homan and Kristi Noem, who will be confirmed, I'm sure, very shortly, because, is well equipped, has the tools, has the executive orders, has everything legally that he needs to execute the mass deportation that the people voted for. The people voted for this, and so it's merely just giving people what they voted for in the first place. We had millions upon millions upon millions upon millions upon millions of people flood this country under illegal circumstances. And now it's time to deport them. First, of course, they're going after the criminals, because that's a lot easier to go after in terms of where the location is and things like that. But I'm interested to see how far the deportations go. If they are going to go from criminals to, how would you go as far as to deporting just regular illegal aliens that haven't committed another external crime. Very interesting to see how that happens. I have full faith in Tom Homan, though, all those guys to implement and carry out, execute the executive order there. Another executive order that I'm really excited for and glad that he did was getting rid of 10 old regulations for every one new regulation. The deregulation is going to absolutely open up the economy. If you ask any business owner what the number one limiter to growth, prosperity is, it's not really taxes. It's not, all those kind of things. It's regulation. It's the compliance. Taxes are one thing, but a lot of companies can minimize the impact that taxes have. But the amount of cost, compliance-wise, of regulation is absolutely backbreaking to so many small businesses, and that's exactly what regulatory capture is, and exactly what barriers to entry are. And so, lowering the barriers to entry, taking down the regulatory capture, is exactly how we flood the market with more competition. That's how we lower prices, we increase quality, and we make things more accessible. That's how we do that. We don't do that through price controls. We don't do that through subsidies. We don't do that. We don't do it through those measures. What you do is you have to make it easier for business to be conducted. You need to make it easier for businesses to grow and prosper, employ other people, and compete with each other. And that's how you build a burgeoning economy, and Trump knows this, because Trump did this in his first term, and I can only expect this to really explode furthermore under the second administration. Everything that Trump did in his first administration is going to be amplified in his second administration, because now he actually knows what he's doing. And so the deregulation is just a furthering of the first term agenda, stuff like that. He renamed the Gulf of Mexico to Gulf of America. We should to see if that has to be codified. I'm not really sure how that's going to work. I don't know how you get that recognized internationally. I don't really know a lot about how that's going to happen, but I'm all for the Gulf of America, I guess. But one of the biggest announcements that Trump had within the first couple of days of the inauguration is an AI investment with, I think it was SoftBank, I think it was OpenAI, I think it was Oracle. That was upwards of $200 billion to build data centers and to really make the United States the hub of AI innovation and advancement and research and development. I am very hesitantly optimistic about AI. I think that it has great tools and great potential for, as they said in the press conference, to solve cancers and solve diseases and catch things ahead of time and save lives. AI is a tool that can really bring things downhill very fast. And it's important for us to kind of keep a pin in it, make sure that we monitor it, how strong it gets, how advanced it gets, how deep it gets, how complex it gets, how powerful it gets. The old phrase is, if you want something done right, you do it yourself. And so the best way to kind of combat that is to make sure that we are doing it in our own backyard. J.D. Vance once put it, when he put Drill Baby Drill as a climate change initiative, which the principle is correct. The principle is, in order to make sure things get done right, and i.e. in that case, making sure that drilling is clean and limited emissions, before we try and delegate and kind of give those responsibilities off to someone like China or India, who don't have very good climate regulations or protocols. So if you really want to have clean energy, if you want to clean, or if you want to drill oil the cleanest way, you should have us do it ourselves so we can make sure that it's being done right. Same idea goes with the AI. As someone who is cautiously optimistic about AI, I don't like how fast it progresses oftentimes, but I'd rather it be us doing it than someone like China doing it, an adversary, an enemy, someone who doesn't like us on the world stage. So making the AI stuff here, I'm all for it. Next thing he did was tariffs, just really threatening anyone and everywhere with tariffs. EU with tariffs, China with tariffs, Canada with tariffs, Mexico with tariffs. And a lot of people feel like they misunderstand what the meaning and the effects, the intention of the tariffs are. On paper, tariffs do raise prices. I don't think you'll ever find a conservative that doesn't admit that. What the media and the left twist so much is that the tariffs aren't meant to actually stick in most cases. Tariffs are a great way to make outside economies more uncompetitive for the domestic economy. And so what Trump's trying to do with the tariffs he isn't trying to just milk every single company, though if they choose not to come to the country, then they will be more uncompetitive in the United States. The point of the tariffs isn't a punitive measure. Outside of China, I really don't know if I would support a punitive tariff. Maybe Mexico, maybe. But the point of tariffs is to make other markets uncompetitive for companies that want to do stuff in the United States. The tariffs that Trump is implementing, the way Trump is doing the tariffs, I actually really like, because not only is he making the outside non-domestic foreign economies uncompetitive, which is kind of pushing, or I guess pulling in a sense, companies back into the United States to put their hubs here, but he's also making the domestic economy much easier and more competitive. Dropping the corporate tax rate to 15%, which is a lot more competitive with the global world stage than the original Trump tax bill, which was 21%. 15% would give companies the incentive to come back, while also kind of sandwiching that with the tariffs that are disincentivizing them from leaving. So I really like how Trump is approaching these tariffs. Because the worst comes to worst and the companies don't come back into the United States, well, we get that revenue in added taxes, and Trump wants to hopefully, if the Congress will allow it, substitute those taxes, or substitute the increased revenue from the tariffs into less taxes. But before we get into that, we had the Lake and Riley Act that was passed and is on Trump's desk. By the time this video comes out, I'm not sure if it will be signed into law, but essentially just deporting illegal migrants who commit crimes. And the media and the left really tried to twist this into something that it's not. They tried to cry wolf on due process, but the fact of the point of the bill is that these people are already on the hook for deportation. Only a matter of catching them and sending them back. If they get accused of stealing, whether it's falsely or not, they're already due to get deported. So it's not this big outrage in terms of civil rights violations.
to deport someone who has been accused, they are already on the hook. They are already, the Grim Reaper is coming in a sense. The deportation Grim Reaper is coming, and this only makes it easier for ICE and deportation officers to find them and to thus deport them. It's not meant to lock them up in a United States jail. It's meant to make it easier for us to find and deport them. So when the Lake and Riley Act is only really, it's there to help ICE deport migrants. That's what it's made to do. It's not a crime bill that is trying to, incarcerate people. It's something that's supposed to help ICE identify people. So when you hear people talk about Lake and Riley Act and due process and trials, stuff like that, these people aren't owed that in the sense that other U.S. citizens are. These people are already on the hook for leaving, being deported from the country, okay? This act merely makes that little slip up where they would make a mistake and be like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get deported now. It makes that a lot easier for ICE. So Lake and Riley Act is really, really good. And the other two pieces of legislation coming up is, of course, going to be a major spending bill and a tax bill. Probably going to reinstate the original Trump tax cuts, boost it a little bit, trying to cut taxes a little bit more. And then the spending bill is probably going to it's going to be the first act of the Doge. Is going to be the first kind of swing that Trump's going to have at cutting spending. I know that they were talking about work requirements for Medicaid. I support work requirements for just about every single form of federal assistance. I don't think it should be just given out all willy-nilly like that, because they really shouldn't exist in a federal sense in the first place. The big question is whether or not how you kind of split up the bills. Do you put it in one big omnibus bill where you kind of push it into one thing, or do you try and chop it up and do a bunch of different bills and try and do it that way? It could be longer, but it could have a higher likelihood of getting through, or just go with one big bill and try and, do it in one big swing. I don't know what will happen, but what I do know is that it will happen relatively soon. I think Trump has got his finger on the trigger really, really hard here, and I know Congress is really trying to fix something up. So it's really a matter of time before we get a spending bill, a tax bill. Hopefully, it's going to be the lower taxes, lower than the original Trump tax cuts. And hopefully, you got to pray and hope that the spending bill is actual, real spending. We can't keep digging ourselves into debt. We can't do it. We just can't do it. And I hope that the spending bill cuts back on spending in a meaningful way. But this is Congress, so there's that kind of a dampener and hope. But I am optimistic that this second Trump administration can really be a momentous moment of change. But the first test is the first spending bill, and we'll have to wait and see how good that spending bill really is. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, hit the like button. If you want to support and help channel grow, become a member, subscribe, and ring the bell to stay updated with all my uploads. Finally, whether you agree or disagree, leave your thoughts in the comment section below. I look forward to engaging with you guys in respectful and thoughtful discussions. With that said, I'll see you guys next video. See ya.